Welcome Home Radio Podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Our team is here with answers to guide you through the buying and selling process. We encourage you to ask questions. Please comment on this show or visit us at welcomehomeradio.net for more information. Bringing real estate, lending, and education together in one place, and to help you make the right home decision for you and your family. Here are your hosts, Blair Thomas, Thom Holmes, Alan Pace, and Jeff Duffy.
Welcome to Welcome Home Radio. Today, January 24th, we're looking forward to going forward and talking about some very important issues that exist in the real estate world. And we've got some experts here. Alan Pace, how you doing today?
Hi, Tom.
Well, good to see you. And Blair, my co-host, he's not going to be able to speak today because we told him not to say anything.
But he's not
Jeff, good idea, right, Alan?
Yes.
Good. And Jeff Duffy's unable to join us today, but our guest today is Brandon O'Brien, and he's with Asset Val and has experience with lots of different things as far as histories in the asset business, and I'll have him do a little self-introduction for himself here real quick to tell us a little bit about where he's coming from and what his background looks like, his histories, and what his favorite color is.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Brandon O'Brien, as Tom said, I'm an appraiser, broker, loan officer. I kind of spend most of my time managing an appraisal management company. I'm also spend time doing my own real estate work, and I enjoy kind of working on homes as well. So,
and if we hear the term AMC, we're not talking about the movie theater chain, are we?
No, you're talking about the appraisal management company.
How did those come about? Tell me a little bit about the history there. The good old days. In the good old days when I used to order appraisals, we had an appraiser. Actually, I worked in a company with an in-house appraiser. So I would be able to walk down the hall and ask Ronnie, hey, Ronnie, what do you think about this value? Do you think we'll be at 175 so I can get rid of mortgage insurance? Was that a good setup?
Flintstones.
Yeah.
Well, the 175,000 valuation I was looking at on the biggest cave that I had done a loan on, but anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. So yeah, the appraisal management company's been around for a while, but as kind of we've alluded in other sessions we've done, but the appraisal management company really came into play heavily with Dodd-Frank, which was kind of the Congress's, without getting into history there too much, but kind of pushed in some policies that created some separation between the production of the lending environment and loan origination and the appraiser to kind of separate that influence to push property values and in ways to kind of bettering for the loan for the homeowner or the borrower.
Well, and again, for our listeners, I think the history is important to understand. I think all of this actually involved a lawsuit back in 1994 in New York State. There was a class action lawsuit brought by the Attorney General then, Anthony Cuomo, who brought this against the lending industry and the realtors and said, look, we're causing undue pressure for people like Brandon sitting in their office, or Ronnie. I mean, when that lawsuit was first filed, I went down to Ronnie's office and said, Ronnie, what do you think about all this? I mean, don't you think you should know if I need 175 for the value on the property? And he just looked at me and shook his head, and like he normally would. Because the reality is that, we need to always have that separation. You represent, bottom line, the investor and their interest when we talk about an appraisal being done. And lending too much as far as an investor is concerned that is not favorable for them. And at the same time, they want to maximize the dollars they're investing to the proper loan to values that you guys come up. So a lot of our conversation today is going to kind of revolve around ethics and how those ethics have been built in the business. I know sometimes people look at lenders and cuss us out and say, well, nobody's watching you and nobody, there is no rain on you, blah, 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 blah. And prior to 2008, that was probably very true as far as lenders were concerned. But that was also a mixture of the industry, not only just lenders, but appraisers, realtors, title companies. Everybody was in it to show and get and receive as much profitability as they possibly could. And by that, you would do that by increasing values of properties. That's kind of a key issue that comes along when we talk about those situations. One of the things that I wanted to address today, as far as ethics are concerned, does deal with the recent research, and this has been in the media, about the fact that appraisers have been given challenges here recently, and they stage houses with different ethnicities in those houses and find valuations change according to the different ethnicities. And usually minority homes, if it's indicated that a minority lives there, then there's the possibility of coming in with a lower value than there would be if it was a non-minority couple staged in the house itself. And that was the only thing they did with changing that. Do you have any comments as to, that type of work that's been done here recently in research?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been at a lot of conferences where this has been a topic. I've been involved with parties that have kind of put into place some new guidance, and also at places where some of those individuals spoke specifically on their experience around that. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that I think the industry as a whole has put a lot of focus and energy to make sure that the industry, not just the appraisal world, but specifically in the appraisal world, we're being attentive and making sure there's no ill intent or negative influence into the process.
And tell us a little bit about, because I know you've had some education on this, tell us about some of the bias or anti-bias training that you've received or you've been involved with, because I know you're actively, the people that, of course, I deal with, I have no doubts that the only color that they're worried about is green. But for our listeners today, just so that they understand, tell us about some of the stopgap measures and some of the things that have been put in place to help us be more aware of our circumstances when we're doing things like evaluating a property and its minority type held property.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a cascade of different things going up from the individual that interacts with the borrower or interacts with the property specifically, I would say, going all the way up to the lender in the channels everywhere in between. We do for the specific individual appraiser, right? There's no specific requirements to go do any training at an individual appraiser level, but a lot of the continuing education providers have put a lot of programs together. I myself have done quite a few of those through various online channels. And then also going to a lot of the conferences as well. We have people that are represented there at the GSE level, even some of the programs at the Mortgage Bankers Association at some of their national conferences are doing a lot of that as well. And so I think the individual appraiser is being well exposed and getting a lot of support in looking at ways to help identify where that may become an issue or potentially a conflict or challenge. all the way up to specifically in the appraisal world, where the appraisal management companies are in place. Like specifically our company, we have a lot of that training specifically to make sure we're looking for things in our QC process. Some of it is very challenging to identify, but as we're reviewing and QCing and reading, we make sure we review and read the comments to make sure there's nothing in there directly, for example. And then also just trying to study the data, utilizing the data we have to make sure that everything's consistent when we're in a market. Some of that process is not unique, and some of it is specifically focused to be looking for those things that may be driven to a bias.
And can you address maybe one of those things that might be specific to that point that you've studied or you've been exposed to?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things I would point to. I mean, one, there's always some, we haven't specifically seen it, but some of the illustrations that have been brought up and some of the committee meetings that have been done in Washington, pointed to certain terminology that was in there in the appraisal, specifically that the appraiser pointed out that, maybe utilize terms that maybe weren't directly derogatory, but maybe led to the appraiser maybe being influenced because of being in a specific area. Whether it's, just to use one example, maybe they pointed out criminal activity, certain things that necessarily you probably wouldn't have never pointed out in the appraisal, for example. And I don't think, unless there's something directly that's impacting the property, external influence, backing to a grocery store, backing to something that impacts the property. So we look at that, and that's some of the things that I think a lot of people have pointed to is some of the derogatory, or maybe not necessarily derogatory comment, just comments that maybe might allude to the fact that the appraiser leaned maybe on the lower end than maybe he would have if that wasn't a factor in a different neighborhood.
One of the things that I was exposed to in one of my conversations regarding this was interesting about religion being a factor in determination of value. And I learned an important lesson from an appraiser about the fact that if you live close to the synagogue in the Jewish religion, that there's a certain distance from the synagogue that is designated as a more sacred area because it allows you to walk to the synagogue on your days of rest. And were you aware of that as far as that goes, that there's actually these areas that are around the synagogue, and thusly those areas when a Jewish person is asking, well, where do I go to buy a house near other Jewish people? You as a realtor, what would you answer that, Alan? How would you answer that? You're a realtor. If I'm a Jewish person and I say I want to live near more Jewish people.
Well, I just want to say it's in my 21 years of doing this, it's never happened. But a lot of folks have done their research on their own, and they'll have a general area in mind. And my job is to help them, find their landing spot. And I really, I just respond to what their needs are, and I'm happy to help them, whatever those needs are.
Well, and that again is the perfect response as far as what we would do in our business with regards to that, turning it back to the person saying, look, you need to be able to talk with your rabbi about how far the Shabbat area is that you would live in, and that is walking distance, because, of course, they're not supposed to, Orthodox Jews aren't supposed to be using cars or mechanical vehicles on the day of the Sabbath to get to the synagogue for their services. So again, we get into kind of weird things that are out there that people are not aware of. Brandon, can you think of anything else kind of strange along those lines?
I mean, there's so many different variations, just influencing property value, right? I mean, just in that topic alone, right? There is, I mean, you could study and potentially see that there's a higher price or higher overall average values in that proximity. I mean, it's not hard to do. I live in one of these areas that would be kind of unofficially classified in that sense. And there's a demand specifically in our neighborhood. So
exactly,
you can be close it's hard to potentially quantify that. That's where as an appraiser, you really stick to finding homes that are in that neighborhood, right? Because if you jump out, you may not be using the best indicators of value. And honestly, I don't know if that's much different than the proximity of walking to the beach or proximity to plenty of things in the value world. Specifically talking about value, I don't know if it's much different in that scenario. Being walkable to a lot of different things definitely increase that value. Now, depending on where it is, but proximity is still a locational factor that drives value.
Being voted off the island today.
Well, I was going to say, I'm getting worried with Blair not saying anything. Weren't you, Alan?
I'm just sitting here loving that he's not frozen in his screen.
Brandon, a question I have about proximity. One of the things that I think is undervalued, or at least something in my knowledge base, is what we experienced 3 years ago with the frozen chosen type situation, is that being within a mile of a hospital, fire department, or police station is very important because those areas don't lose power, period, where you can have rolling brownouts to blackouts in other areas. Do you see a valuation increase due to that little tidbit of location and a value of home? Because I know Alan has seen a few people aware of this situation asking I'm looking for a home within this parameter. So is there value there, or is that not non-existent?
There may be a value there. Quantifying it and giving it a adjustment is probably, I don't know if I've ever been able to extract something out of the data. When we sit up and do an appraisal, we do what's called pair sales analysis, and we kind of grid this stuff out, and we start seeing where certain things drive value. That's not one that I've been able to quantify, and so it's definitely a value. I think we might be in that area as well, and it may, because when everyone was out, our power was still on. And so I'll tell you, it's worth something. I don't know. I don't have to buy a generator. This price up.
I mean, I don't have to buy a generator. I don't have to be. I mean, it's just a knowledge base of comfort of buying a home and being aware that I'm not going to lose power no matter what, since I'm within that parameter by law, and those are priority areas. So
we are literally a block away from the fire department, and we used to complain about the siren noise, and never again.
Never again, right? I just heard our fire engine go off. That's about a block and a half from me, and I thought, oh, that's music to my ears.
I'm thinking I'm going to mark my house up 5% more just because you brought that up.
I would.
It's going to be on my listing when I sell mine. Absolutely will be there.
Historically has not fallen apart during snowmageddons.
No reason to buy a generator.
I can see an appraiser putting that in their comments.
Could happen. If Texas keeps losing electricity during the winter or summer or whatever,
I know,
it could very well happen.
So,
go ahead, Blair. I know you have one more question.
That's what I wanted to ask was, how is that evaluated? Because that to me is very important, but how do you appraise or put that value equitably in there? I know it's not on the topic of what we're seeing here, and I didn't even know this topic was a concern. I really didn't until you brought it up. It's a shame that our society has gotten to that point that they've evaluated appraisers and probably changed out pictures, changed out things just to see what they would do evaluation differently. But I guess the scrutiny is needed, because all you're doing is evaluating a piece of property. You're not evaluating the people that live there.
Correct. Exactly.
And that's very sad view in my part, just for my grandkids, what they're doing, my kids dealing with in the buying process at all four of them in situations. But I guess it's reality as well.
Well, and I wanted to ask Brandon something else. You know, I'm from Fort Worth originally, and there's an elementary school over there, and people fight to be within that Fort Worth ISD elementary school. Not necessarily does it matter if their kids are middle school age or high school age. They'll send them maybe to private school at that point. Can that influence as far as the value is concerned, just that type of factor where you have a specifically highly rated elementary school that people want to go to? Can that raise the value in that specific school district area where literally you would have one house next to another house and the next house goes to another elementary school than the school that's preferred or loved or liked or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been a factor as long as I've been appraising, so it's nothing unique. Nothing unique to a lot of other things that drive value as well locationally. But yeah, there's plenty of school districts that drive and even down to specific school lines, whether it's the elementary, junior high, and all the way up to high school, or it's just specific to that elementary school. Absolutely.
Is that something the realtor promotes as far as with you? I mean, is it good for a realtor to leave their valuation assessments right there, their broker opinions, for you to have a copy of those and be able to see what they were basing their values on? Is that a good recommendation for people like Alan to get off their keister and do that for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good idea. Whether it's a hard paper or they, I have them reach out and ask for my email, or they just email me stuff unsolicited and say, hey, here, I've got this, here's what, here's my CMA, here's some comps that I kind of looked at when I was doing this. And by the way, here's the improvements, right? Give us all that insight, whatever you can do to help our job easier. Absolutely.
Alan was very defensive posture there for a second. I mean,
he's okay, I'm sure.
Well, he leaned in, so he's got a question. Or
I know he's got something he wants to say.
No, I thought that was very good advice, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah, do our job for us, Alan. Come on.
It's okay. I love it.
We got to remember who the recession was caused by, the realtors or the appraisers. It wasn't the lenders. We know that.
No, I think there's some common sense to all that. I mean, as a realtor, you want success for your client, and whatever that means, you go that mile. So that's all good information. You try to let your sellers know that, obviously, most of them do know. You got different kinds of sellers. You got the kind that just want out, they don't care, and you got the kind that want to get top dollar. So depending on who your client is, that's who you're dealing with and what you're working with. And it's fun. So you see all the different scenarios and situations out here.
I kind of wanted to change course unless somebody else has some other questions here. I want to change course because, Brandon, I know you deal in touch in the commercial world as well. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing with regards to the commercial world and the trends in it right now. I understand, of course, a lot of people, have been highly invested or as far as commercial investments in office buildings, but I've been reading several articles that a lot of these leases are coming due as far as 5 and 7 years or 10 years after they've been written. And with the advent of COVID and the way we do our workplace now, office buildings may be being affected in a negative way as far as valuation is concerned. What's your take on that as far as the commercial world is going?
Yeah, well, that when you get into commercial, it's I guess no different than residential. I mean, it's a locational factor, right? State by state, city by city. You look at the Texas in general, right? I mean, Texas has gone crazy with multifamily. I mean, multifamily still going all over the place. Still constant building, still consistent planning for the Dallas-Fort Worth area and beyond. Same with San Antonio, Austin, Houston. I mean, you name it. And so, but absolutely, when it comes to that office space, non-industrial type environment, I think they're still filling that out. It's hard to say. I talk to a lot of people in industry that are heavily pushing people back. They're giving a minimum 2 days. You have to be in the office, 3 days in the office. They're really trying to drive that. And so it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. But, has it been, is it a topic of concern right now of what those properties are going to be, what they're going to be valued and considered on the market, and what their overall market value will be? I mean, that's still up in the air. It'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. But yeah, I don't know if I've had any personal direct conversations around that where I've seen. I'm just kind of following what the industry's kind of putting out on the NBA level and such.
Back in the day in my previous career, I used to work in Houston a lot, and there wasn't any zoning to speak of. You'd have a factory next to a house. It was so interesting down there, and it just was unbelievable, really. But you would have houses and businesses right next to each other, and the owner of the company I was calling on, he goes, "Yeah, the zoning down here is just totally different." And I've not seen it anywhere else, but I just thought that was interesting. I don't even know if that's even possible anymore. But you ever run into that?
What market was that? I'm sorry, Alan.
I was in Houston.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't come across that. I mean, Houston is that anomaly. I will say I've spent 5 years living in California, and there's definitely some of that there as well. But yeah, I don't in Houston area has just driven right through that, right? You get up in northern part into Conroe and other areas like that, and Woodlands, you don't really run into that as much.
No, this was down in the heart of Houston, and it was very interesting. Even in Dallas, I never saw it back in those days. But anyway, I haven't seen it since, so I'm sure it's on its way out.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to see a lot of conversion of commercial real estate office buildings into mixed use apartment and retail, I bet, as we're already seeing malls and other areas being converted into that type of living and business combination. So commercially, I think we're going to be hurting here because, again, the jobs market, I don't know where businesses are doing. They're stalling their hirings. They're slowing down. We can't admit that we're in a recession and that's my opinion, but that's how I see it.
Well, that's interesting too. When you had the fact Dallas just went over 8 million, the DFW area on population. So people got to live somewhere.
People are moving to Texas, that is for sure. And we are in a great area of the country, but our whole country has to heal. And if we can't admit that we're sick, then there's a problem.
Well, you keep freezing, so are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay, good.
Maybe y'all's link is not as good, huh?
Well, except for the fact words are coming out and then your picture probably shows the words afterwards. anybody that watches this today will say, well, did he have a mannequin next to him? And he was, hello, my name is Blair. How are things going today?
Yes, I'm working on my ventriloquist work. So
very nice.
My
Good
secondary
work.
job.
We can appreciate that. Brandon, sorry we did digress as far as that goes. Help us with some final thoughts as far as what you see in the marketplace, what you're getting a feel for, investments, as far as any investments that might be good that you see are undervalued right now. Use that valuation experience and tell us use your crystal ball for me, please.
Oh man, it's so tough right now. I think there's opportunities out there. I think you've got to, just in the investor world, it's specific to residential, just not as much on the market. So you really have to find them. Always the best deals are off market, but you definitely got to dig in and find those deals that are, in a more unique way. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to tell where the industry is in the investor space is going right now. I think we're definitely in a slow point. We'll see when the spring kicks off to see how investors pick up. But some of the things that I've seen more specifically is trying to find opportunities where you had a single property and it's zoned in a place where you could put a duplex up. That's been a big factor.
Okay.
City of Dallas is trying to push that. I don't know how that panned out, but I think I'm fine with areas that are zoned for 2 units or 4 units to stay that way. Moving stuff from a single to a multi scenario really should be, you should really stop and look at that to see what the preponderance is and what a real need is more than just doing it.
I'm seeing more and more veterans right now, since we do a VA construction loan, buying or looking at building quadplexes so that they can have a primary, but they're renting out the other 3. And it seems to be a good business sense for them right now. So opportunity there, as you're saying.
That's an interesting program. That's a good program to mention as far as that goes. The construction type programs. Do you get much of that type of specialty type of appraisal, like 203Ks or even reverse mortgage programs? Do you see more of those?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's been a spike of 203K as much as anything else. We do at Asset Value, we do work with a few reverse lenders, and so that's been pretty steady. That's also driven on locational markets and property values, right? Because the higher the value, the more that they can get.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you seeing the higher valued homes with reverse mortgages, or is it still blue collar kind of 270, 250 range? Which is,
I haven't looked at that level, but I'll tell you what I do see. It seems all over the place. I mean,
okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
I mean, we see financial advisors actually making this kind of part of their plan nowadays, where they say, well, you can downsize, you can buy another house. But when they buy the next house, they want kind of the same amenities they had before, just less yard and a newer home with less problems.
Well,
they can do that with a reverse mortgage by just putting down half of what they are needing to put down on the house. A $500,000 house, they could put $250 down on it and get a $250 mortgage. So if they made $400,000 on the sale of their house, they're walking away with an extra $150,000 they're not going to pay taxes on. So in other words, we're seeing it's not a mortgage of last resort anymore. It becomes, in some cases, a mortgage of financial planning for people that need to be able to use that product, because 47% of the people that retire in the United States, their sole source of income at the age of 62, their sole source of income is Social Security. And a lot of people don't realize Social Security was never intended to be a retirement plan. It was supposed to be a subsidy plan for retirement, not a retirement plan itself. But anyway.
But companies aren't supporting their pension programs anymore for people like when they set up that plan.
Yeah. So you have to
that.
actively take part of the 401ks your company's offers instead, because they don't offer pension plans. You're right. But the 401k, the beauty of the 401k, of course, if you got like I do, where you have an employer that matches, you're getting 3, 4, 5, 6%. I was talking with my daughter over the break, and her company matches up to 6%. And I said, man, if you're not putting 6% in
Max
there,
it out.
You are crazy as a loon.
Max it out. That's right. When did you get your financial planner's license there, Thom?
Well, that's a really good idea. Maybe I should do that next.
Well, I agree with you. The Heckam for Purchase program that allows, I think it's going to free up a lot of baby boomers once they understand that they can get out of their home, sell it, and do a Heckam for Purchase and never have a mortgage payment, but buy an updated home, lower maintenance, refresh it. And that's going to open up the market a little bit more as well. So it is a great financial tool for those that are in the baby boomer age. So, because Texas and I think it's Texas and Utah are the only two states that require 62 or older. Others are 55. And so it can be used in other states at a younger age.
Exactly right. Brandon, what we're trying to do is solve the housing shortage problem here. So you started that with your duplex, triplex stuff. So just in case you were wondering which rabbit hole we were going down in this particular case.
Sure.
Well, I really appreciate again today, Brandon. How would people, if they want to get hold of you, what would you recommend as far as that do? Email or call you direct or call you at 2:00 in the morning? What would you like us to put up there to allow them to contact you? Your email address?
Sure. Yeah, we could put that up. You put up BOBRIANT at the letter I, the number 2, RE.com.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you being here today and being with us. Your information's been valuable, and hopefully this has helped some of our listeners come with some other ideas on the marketplace and have a different perspective on the valuation process in particular. I'm Thom Holmes. I'm with Champion School of Real Estate. Love you guys, and have a great, hopefully your first month of your new year is going wonderfully.
And I'm Blair Thomas.
And I'm Alan Pace.
God bless.
Welcome Home Radio production provided by Lunatic Digital. Check the listing of this podcast for the links to our sponsors. And don't forget to like, share, and follow us on social media. Visit welcomehomeradio.net for more information. This was a Lunatic Digital production. Visit lunaticdigital.com for all your digital needs.